Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
15 years ago, I was living in a very large and expensive city, in what had once been the servants' quarters of an extremely large Victorian house. The whole house was broken up into apartments that progressively grew larger and nicer as you went up. I lived on the bottom floor with my then soulmate. After being there for about a year, we got a new upstairs neighbor, which ended up being not so great. Both soulmates and I worked in the hospitality industry, and as a result, kept late hours but tried to keep it respectful with the coming and going in the wee hours. Upstairs neighbor worked normal human hours. When she wasn't working, she seemed to always be talking on speakerphone and pacing around in heels on the hardwood floors. I've had neighbors with much worse habits, so I've basically tuned it out. But apparently our schedule was very inconvenient for her. Lots of complaints about the noise we made, hours we kept, about the dog, and kind of anything else you would imagine. The landlord mostly liked us, so it never went too far, but still annoying. We probably could have coexisted like that for years, but one night I got back from work and there was a strange station wagon parked diagonally across both of our alleys' parking spaces, making it impossible to park even one other car there. One of the perks of having the least impressive of all the building's apartments was 2 parking spaces that the landlord included with our lease. He was really good about keeping other tenants from parking there, and we really appreciated it since parking in the neighborhood was expensive and not easy to find around the building. Everyone in the building was very well aware those spots belonged to us. We had occasionally let other people in the building park there if we were going out of town, or if they didn't mind being plugged in, like if they were out of town but leaving their car. We mostly bike, so usually both of our cars were there. But on this particular event, we have both been using our vehicles. We figured someone had parked there by accident and would be back soon. But 2 hours later the car was still there, so I called the landlord to see about getting it towed. The landlord showed up and told us it was our upstairs neighbor's car and that she had left the country for the next 4 months. He also refused to tow the car because she was a tenant and he had no actual spine. So for 4 months we were going to have to pay to park 2 cars, and every single time I took my dog out for a walk or a poop, I had to walk right past her car. I was tempted to slash the tires, break the windshield, key the crap out of it, sugar in the gas tank, you name it. I thought about it. But I also don't want to get in any legal trouble and stack up even more bills on top of what was already going to be an expensive situation. So what to do? How to express my boundless rage without committing an actual crime? About 3 weeks in, I was out with my dog, and while I was passing her damn car, I basically saw red. Before I even realized what I was doing, I was smearing the dog crap I had just picked up all over her door handles, laughing like a lunatic. And I kinda felt better about it. So I just kept doing that. For almost 3 months, every single time I took my fairly large dog out to drop a tooth in the neighborhood, I rubbed all of it on that station wagon, and I got pretty creative. Door handles, the grill, the windshield wipers, crevices around the windows and sunroof, all up in the side mirrors, cracks in the doors, the little gutters on the roof, the locks, into the gap around the hood. If you can get to it without breaking it, I got to it and it was chock full of dog poop. And since my city was pretty famous for its precipitation, the excess was regularly rinsed off, which hid the absolutely incredible amount of poop that was all up in that car, while also helping a dog poop slurry get deep in those cracks and crevices. It was absolutely disgusting, and honestly, I felt pretty proud of myself. I wasn't there to see her get into that car for the first time, neither of us were, but I do know that I got home one night and the car was moved. She never spoke to or even made eye contact with either of us ever again, but I did see the car with a for sale sign around the neighborhood for several months before she moved out. One day, I decided to head to the boxing training center. I had been attending this place for a while and it had become my second home. Boxing was my passion, my escape from the stress of daily life. As I walked into the gym, I noticed a commotion near the entrance. The source of the commotion was a woman in her late 40s accompanied by her 16-year-old son. By the way, I had a feeling that this day was going to be different. Karen, as I would later learn what they called her, strutted into the gym like she owned the place. She was loud, obnoxious, and dressed in workout gear that seemed completely out of place in a boxing gym. Her son, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, slouched behind her. She immediately began to disrupt the peaceful atmosphere of the gym by loudly demanding attention. "Excuse me, everyone. My son is going to be the next boxing champ, and he needs the best training you have." I rolled my eyes and tried to focus on my training. I mean, who says that? I bet her kid wanted to die right now. She started instructing her son loudly as if she was the expert. "Make sure you punch harder, Jeremy. You call that a jab? I could do better with my eyes closed." Jeremy, clearly embarrassed, tried to concentrate on his training, but it was evident that he was distracted by his mother's constant yelling. The trainers tried to intervene, but Karen would have none of it. One of the trainers approached Karen politely. "Ma'am, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but please let us handle the training. Your son is in good hands here." Karen huffed. "You people are all the same. I know what's best for my son, and I won't stand for any nonsense." She continued to shout instructions at Jeremy, who was growing more frustrated by the second. The breaking point came during a sparring match between Jeremy and another 16-year-old boy named Dan. Both boys were eventually matched, but it was clear that Jeremy was struggling under the weight of his mother's expectations. Dan landed a live punch to Jeremy's ribs, causing him to wince slightly. Karen, however, lost it. She stormed into the ring, pushing the referee aside and screamed, "That's it! I've had enough of this nonsense." She charged at Dan, throwing a wild punch in his direction. But Dan, trained and skilled, easily dodged her lousy punch with a sidestep and countered with a precise right hook. The punch landed squarely on Karen's jaw, and she dropped to the canvas like a sack of potatoes. The gym fell into stunned silence, broken only by the sound of Karen's moans of pain. I couldn't help but chuckle at the poetic justice of the situation. The trainers rushed to Karen's aid while Dan looked both shocked and remorseful. I overheard one of the trainers call 911, and within minutes, the police and paramedics arrived on the scene. Karen was checked over by the paramedics and eventually regained full consciousness, albeit with a severe bruise on her jaw. The police officers questioned everyone involved, and it became evident that Dan had acted in self-defense. Jeremy, now free from his mother's constant criticism, admitted that he had been happier and more focused on his training before his mom's interference. As Karen continued to make a scene, the officers decided they had no choice but to take her into custody. Dan's parents, who had witnessed the entire incident, pressed charges against her for assaulting their son. It felt good as I watched Karen being led away in handcuffs. Her entitled behavior had finally caught up with her, and she was about to face some consequences. The gym returned to its usual peaceful atmosphere, and Jeremy seemed relieved to be free from his mother's overbearing presence. He even approached Dan and apologized for his mother's actions, and he assured him that it was not his fault and that he was welcome to continue training with him without the interference of his entitled mother. This is a story about my cousin. He used to work as a parking officer a few years ago. The following story happened to him, and his response seemed befitting to the subreddit. One day my cousin was off shift and in his civilian clothing. He was simply shopping for groceries at the supermarket that evening, and once he left the supermarket, he went back to his car and loaded the trunk with his groceries. He proceeded to put the key in the ignition and start the car. Before he was able to exit his parking space, he got blocked by another car, meaning to stop him from leaving his parking spot. Then comes out a guy who was trying to confront my cousin, knocked on his window, and ordered him to step out of the vehicle, while flashing a badge. Turns out he's an undercover cop in civilian clothes, driving in an unmarked vehicle. My cousin complied and stepped out. The jerk tells him, "Seems that you have quite a beast of a ride there, my friend." Cousin tells him it's only a family SUV, officer. "I'm not quite sure about that. I heard some unusual sounds from your engine as you pulled over. I suspected you might have installed some illegal performance modifications on your vehicle." "I assure you I haven't. My car is in perfect stock condition." "Well, I had to make sure, so I waited for you until you got back and turned the ignition again. And I do believe there might be a few modifications to your car now that I heard it again. I'm pretty confident that I did not install any modifications on my car. Feel free to check under the hood. My cousin pops the hood open. Well, what do we have here? You modified your air intake system. That's a stock intake. What makes you even think that this is a modified one? And now my cousin is starting to get pissed at him and questioning his competence or what he's claiming to know. Look, dude, I'm not sure you even know what you're talking about here. My cousin tells him. Oh, I know. I knew it since I heard of your unusual engine. I know you're packing. Why would anyone even modify a family SUV like it was a street race car? I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, I'm issuing you a ticket for this. You're issuing me a ticket for something you clearly are not experienced in? Look, buddy, you're trying to plant fictional modifications in my car and I had the hood wide open for you. So please, drop the act or call in another officer who has more experience than you in these matters. I don't think that's necessary. I'm pretty confident your air intake is modified, and I'm experienced enough in these matters. The jerk officer now proceeds to head back to his car to grab out the ticket book, and this is where the sweet revenge starts. Cousin is furious, and he decides to retaliate. Cousin heads back to his car as well to grab his own ticket book. When they were facing each other again, this jerk was surprised to see a ticket book in Cousin's hands. What's happening here? I am writing you a ticket too. Wait, you're an officer too? And what are you writing me for? Yes, I'm a parking officer, and I'm writing you a ticket for illegal parking in a driveway and obstructing a parking space and the exit of other vehicles. I'm not doing that. I'm right here by my car, and I'm available to move it out of the way. I'm only obstructing your exit to carry out my duty until I issue a violation. You're not allowed to do that unless you are in a government vehicle. This is a government vehicle. It's not. It's a civilian car with a public license plate. Sorry, the government vehicle exemption doesn't apply to you in this case. The fine is coming out of your own pockets, buddy. I'm just going to appeal to court about this then. The government will just waive your ticket. You try to do that, buddy. If it works, you're welcome to come back to me and spit in my face. Here is what's gonna happen. You take your ticket to court, you plead not guilty on account that I can't find government vehicle. The rules for undercover cops is that if they are in unmarked vehicles, they are fully responsible for any accidents or violations as long as you have your sirens hidden and dispatch haven't sent you, which is true in my country. The car is currently treated as a civilian car since those conditions don't apply. Therefore, you are responsible for this violation. As for my ticket, I am going to appeal to court as well. The court will assign another experienced officer to inspect my car. Since I'm confident that I did not modify my car in any way and you're full of crap, I am getting this ticket waived. This will also possibly get reported and posted in your file at your police station for falsifying violations. My guess is that you are just trying to fill a ticket quota for a promotion or something, and I don't know, I don't care. All I know is you screwed with the wrong guy. The jerk's officer face was reddening with anger, and my cousin shoved his ticket in his hand and tried to grab the one out of his. The jerk was reluctant in handing out the ticket, seeing that the outcome was going to backfire at him, so my cousin yanked it out of his hand and went inside his vehicle. Cousin rolls down the window and says, "If you'll excuse me now, I need you to move your vehicle. I have a wife and a baby son waiting to be fed." The jerk was mumbling as he walked to his vehicle, while my cousin left smiling. Strap in because this is a long one. This is a continuation of the story I posted on here a few days ago, which you can read here if you want. This is another story about my extremely entitled idiot mom who doesn't know how to act like a normal person. A few years ago, my mom ended up in jail for knowingly and intentionally violating a court order, which as any person would guess is illegal. She was fully aware that what she did was illegal, but according to her, it was everyone else's fault but hers. In her eyes, she was allowed to do whatever she wanted to do because she was a struggling single mother who just wanted to provide for her kids. If you read my last post, she didn't get 2 cents about me. Anyway, after her arrest, I had to go live with some rather distant relatives I hadn't met during my lifetime until then. Since my mom was really my only custodial figure, my relatives, a distant aunt and uncle whose daughter married into our family, were absolutely lovely people and were happy to take me in until the thing with my mom blew over. It never did. After living with my mom for my whole life and dealing with her nonsense, I was so incredibly happy to be living with other people. They treated me more like a daughter than my mom ever did. And honestly, they parented me more in a month than my mom had in the previous 3 years. Naturally, if my mom isn't making everyone miserable, she's not living. Even behind bars, she was tormenting me. Every day she would call the landline at my aunt and uncle's house. She would call 4 times, then no one answered. She would call my uncle's cell phone twice. Then when he didn't answer, she'd call my aunt's cell twice. She did this from 8 to 9 in the morning, then 2 to 3 in the afternoon. Don't ask me how this woman got so many damn phone calls in literal jail. Why were we purposely dodging her calls? I'll tell you. At first, we would answer the calls and try to entertain her. I would pick up, say hello, and receive nothing but endless screaming from the other end. "In case you haven't noticed, I'm in jail," she would say, as if that was like not to my own knowledge. That would be followed by some more screaming about how awful it is and she doesn't have toothpaste and can't wear earrings in jail, like I'm supposed to do something about that. Then she would make her demands. "You need to get me out of here. You need to get me a lawyer, and you better do it fast. I don't have time for this nonsense." At the time this was occurring, I was 15. I was busy with school most of the time, and this was not a priority of mine. I said, "You get a public defender though." And she went insane. "Can you not act stupid? I need more than an idiot straight out of law school. I need someone who will give a damn and actually help me." Oh, okay. My stupid teenage self actually sat down and went through a white pages, calling attorneys and leaving voice messages. Most of them were confused as to why me, a child, was calling in for a grown woman. Pretty much every attorney I could get to call me back either said they didn't take cases such as my mom's, they were busy with other cases, or just a flat no because they didn't want to. All very valid reasons. My mom didn't like hearing this. She accused me of lying about calling any attorneys and that I was just making things up so I didn't have to do anything. She asked why my aunt and uncle weren't helping me. And I just said, I don't know, but really, they couldn't stand my mom. They recognized she was abusing me and just being a trashy childish person in general. So naturally, they decided to stay out of this mess, which I completely agree with. Soon enough, my mom took her demands a step further, telling me I needed to write into Dr. Phil, Nancy Grace, and Oprah. She said she needed her case to have national attention. I knew this was a stupid idea when I heard it. Like any of these people, I care about my idiot mom getting herself tossed in jail. I did it anyway. I never got any responses, which I expected, but mom didn't like that one either. And this is where we get Super Saiyan entitled mom. I was in a grocery store one day and I saw one of my mom's old co-workers. My mom used to work at a thrift store that was affiliated with a women's charity organization that dealt with domestic violence and drug abuse. We said hello and then he asked me, "Is your mom still in jail?" I said yes, and asked how he knew about that. It was never on the news. He then told me that my mother had sent him a 15-page handwritten letter asking the organization to start an individual charity fund just for her to cover her bail, attorney costs, and court fees. Additionally, she asked that the minimum goal be $1 million. This is not a joke, okay? My mom tried to start a GoFundMe from behind bars. She didn't write into the local paper or maybe some personal friends, she had none. She wrote to an organization that helps women get into rehab programs and out of abusive marriages. This woman had the audacity to beg for money from a group that doesn't care about idiots in jail. Her argument? I'm a single mom. Being a single mom sucks and it's hard, but this woman did nothing to ever change our financial situation. She didn't work for nearly a decade for no reason other than laziness, briefly worked odd part-time jobs here and there, and then stopped working again. My jaw dropped to the floor when her coworker told me this. I was so embarrassed. Finally, one attorney I called before called me back and told me his rate, also what he thought of the case and so on. I relayed this message to my mom and what did she say? Why is he charging me? Did you tell him that I'm a single mom? He should be taking my case for free. Obviously, I don't have that kind of money. Both I, my aunt, and my uncle were sick of this nonsense. So finally, we unhooked the landline and only turned on our cell phones after 3 p.m. I literally don't know how I'm a product of my mom's genes. She's completely off her rocker. Edit? For those of you looking through my search histories, yeah, I reached out to my dad after never hearing from him for 18 years. Yes, I live in Florida now, as of a few years ago. I lived in another state when all this happened.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.